calling the meeting to order, and this is a second ago, about 6:41 p.m. And the roll call is Michael Wadsworth and Rob Gibbs. Karen Borchardt is excused because of illness, and Lori Robinson has stepped down from the committee. The next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. And I know that Michael has some changes, and so I've tried to pass out the agenda, but with the changes in red so that we can keep track of them. So do you want to propose your changes, Michael?
I don't think we need it now that Lori stepped down.
Well, do we not want to just make a general statement about any members who are candidates?
Well, sure. First, we should do these minute approval things. Approval of minutes.
That thing is led by my own corrected here.
All right.
Okay, we need to approve the August 28th and September 5th minutes. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
The second,
Yeah.
okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Three of us. All righty. So now, Michael, well, in the approval of the agenda, actually, that would have been the option for you to make your amendments. So we can go ahead and insert them basically. You thought that the discussion of the members is now moved. We do have a resignation from Lori Robinson because she's a candidate for the board. And I will entertain a motion to accept her resignation.
So moved.
From Rob, and the second. From Michael. Okay. And do we have any discussion about any members or candidates?
Appreciate what Lori brought to the committee this year, and fully understand why she would like to step down.
Right. And I would say the same. I think that she had a lot to offer. It was very valuable. I enjoyed her comments and insights. And I also think that as a candidate, this frees her to join any forum, medium, or whatever that's comfortable for her and express her views without running the risk of making it appear that our committee isn't somehow involved in her campaign, which we're not. Okay, so all in favor of accepting Lori's resignation?
Aye.
Yeah.
Real close, or it doesn't.
I just have to remember the ice cream cone. Right. How is this finally? Okay, so nominations and elections has unanimously accepted Lori Robinson's resignation with and expresses appreciation for her participation this year. Okay, so our next item of business is the AGM issues and updates. On the calendar and timelines going forward, a couple of things I wanted to make sure we have in place. And one is the location of the ballot box in the clubhouse. If Unelect observes its own commitment to get the ballots out on the 27th, ballots may be arriving early next week. So it would be great to have our ballot box available for people who want to use it. Linda Bradley brought to my attention that there's a sign, and I think I forwarded the
Yes, I received that from you.
sorry,
I received that from you, Gail, and I will print it and have it posted.
I put that in everyone's packet who needs to see it. So maybe Joanne, you can tell us about the plans to move the ballot box. It's a big deal. It's big and heavy, right?
We'll take care of that this week, so it's in place for the weekend.
Great, great. Thank you very much. All righty. And then we need to also set the date for what I call the tour of the gun cases, for lack of a better term, gun cases and the secret closet and whatever else we need to know, opening the safe perhaps. Do you want to speak to that, Michael?
So we're agreeing that you and I and Gail and I and Joanne are going to meet and clean out the gun cases and set up the ballot box.
I think that Joanne will have staff set up the ballot box because it's heavy and it probably requires,
I took it out last time and carried it downstairs. I think we should be there because we want, we were gonna take control of the keys.
does moving the ballot box involve keys?
But we have to have keys to lock it to the wall, and those are on that ring.
Mhm.
Well, the way that the keys were managed last year, we should probably continue that practice, which is the keys are in an envelope that is sealed and signed. And then it's kept, that envelope is kept in the safe in the administrative offices so that I can't use the keys unless you guys are there to open the envelope with me and then reseal it after the keys are used. So that's the practice that we used last year, and I
Only
believe,
because Nancy was running for the board. In the past, it was the chair kept the keys.
yeah, so the direction of the board has been to continue the practices that were instituted last year.
What's their objection to having the NNE chair hold those keys?
When you require that a set of people are present before the keys can be used, it means that no one can be accused of anything. So it's really for the safety of everyone. And we don't want anyone to be accused of any activity. We want there to be no doubt in anyone's mind that the practices surrounding the election were completely above board, and there are witnesses whenever any part of the election materials are touched.
I understand that. The thing I have a problem with is the board making all these decisions and not letting in and E know until after they've already made all the decisions, when in the past, we did this all differently. It's just all of a sudden now it's, well, we're gonna do it this way. And I'm just stating, we'll have to do what they say, but I'm stating my objection to the board, executive board taking the role of in and E. They're diminishing the role every day and in a lot of different ways. So anyhow, I just wanted to get that out.
Yeah, I see how you could feel that way, Michael. I really do. And I appreciate that you voiced it, and it becomes a record in the meeting minutes here for NNE. But I do want to make everyone aware that our lawyer, our legal counsel, has instructed us that ultimately the board of directors is responsible for the integrity of the election. And since last year, there were accusations made of bias or unfairness, practices were introduced to reduce the chance that any of those claims would gain traction. So to have a group of people manage the keys in tandem means that, again, it's above reproach.
And I'd like to speak to the issue also, and make two observations. I think the issue of the relationship of the board to NNE is to some extent an issue that I would like to postpone until after the AGM. I don't think it's going to be helpful to try and explore that in the next month. That is just my view. I think it does need exploring. I think that when the board has ultimate authority, to me, that would not diminish NNE's historic role in running elections. But I realize that people view it differently, probably need to have more input from legal. And I think that given the tight timeline and everyone's desire to have a fair and well-run professional election, my idea would be to save it as an agenda item for January to try and explore the parameters of that. Now, if a member of NNE feels that the board has egregiously stepped on our toes or egregiously usurped something, then it is correct to bring it forward. But I think on the issue of the keys, oddly enough, because I go back and forth between Seattle and Sudden Valley, I would be most comfortable keeping the keys in the safe, because supposing an issue came up where the keys are needed and I'm in Seattle, it's not going to be great for me to learn at the last minute, hey, Gail, get up here. We need those keys. And I trust your integrity, Joanne. I really do. And I don't think anything mischievous or out of line is going to happen in regarding the keys. That is my goal.
I'm not saying that at
No, I
all.
know
I
you're
just wanted to get this out in the open as to the decisions that were being made are being made by the board and not in an E.
And I
we're finding
agree.
out about them after the fact, and I trust Joanne too. We gave her the keys last year. Everything was fine. I just wanted to address it.
And I appreciate that, Michael. I do.
So is staff also going to take control of all last year's ballots and box them and hold them
Michael,
until the
let's
end
go
of the
one step at
election?
a time here.
Huh?
I think we want to go one step at a time.
Okay, well,
Because we need to, number one, get that ballot box in place because we have moved our timeline up. And as I'm understanding it now, the keys need to be available when the ballot box is moved. Is that correct? And Joanne would like to have, and I think it's great, have the ballot box in place by the weekend, which means that you and I should be available on Friday to do this.
If it's
Yeah,
convenient for the
whatever.
two of you,
I'm not available what, you have on here the 10th and 12th.
I didn't understand that moving the ballot box required. I thought the keys and the gun cases
I
and.
think they're all on the same keychain.
Yeah, well, I didn't understand that because I haven't done it before.
I'm available October 10th or the 12th. I'm not this week at all.
okay. So the ballots are going to be dropped into the mail on Wednesday,
Mhm.
which means that the first residents should begin to receive them some as early as Friday, perhaps, but most over the weekend. So I think that we need to put the ballot box out
Yeah.
now.
Mhm.
I agree.
And
Okay, I was just going by what this has here, so.
right, I was wrong. That's all there is to it. I
Okay.
did not understand that we needed the keys, the ballot box, the
Well,
gun
if you're
cases.
here,
I can be here on
if you're
Friday.
here on Friday, you could sign the thing and they could put it all up and okay, so you guys will do that Friday. Ballot boxes are going to go up Friday.
Okay, so let's just have an agreement around the keys
Mhm.
that for belt and suspenders, we'll have 3 people involved anytime the keys are accessed. And one of them will always be from N&E at least. And one of them will always be me. And when Michael or Rob or whomever from N&E is available, then we can have 2 N&E people and me. But if a second N&E committee member is not available, then I will ask a member of my staff to be present and view everything. So we have those 3 people. Nothing is just me and you or you and me.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I think that's a good process.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
I should just quickly ask you, would you be available on Friday to participate in the ritual?
In the unveiling.
Let me check my trusty calendar.
And just, so that more than one, Michael knows that he's done it now. I think this would be his 3rd or 4th year. But if he's not available, it might be good to have widen the circle of expertise here.
Sorry, I've got this new phone on Friday. And it's a different platform. So
iPhone?
I did, yeah.
Well, congrats. Well, I uploaded iOS 17 and I'm very confused.
I've been an Android person for a long time. So
Oh no.
there we go. I found it.
What do you-
Yes, Friday I'm wide open. So perfect.
So why don't you suggest a time, Joanne, when
Yeah.
we will meet and go over these things?
Okay, I'd like to check with Mike because we want someone there to lift the heavy thing. And then if it's okay, I'll go ahead and just email the 2 of you with his window of availability.
Perfect. And that's at the clubhouse, correct?
Yes, it is.
Perfect.
And Mike is who is
Mike Brock. Yeah.
is our maintenance manager. So he's
Sorry, Joanne.
That's okay. Being I'm not really an absentee member at all, but I do go back and forth.
You probably know every chuck hole on I-5.
yeah. All right. So that's good. And I feel comfortable that we've discussed this whole key situation, and we'll keep them where they're available. But with that consideration that we'll have the three folks. And then regarding the other elements of this, because placing the ballot box is one thing,
Mhm.
but last year's ballots need to be moved out or to the one gun case where they're saved, right,
Mhm.
I
Michael?
think one gun case is full.
Right.
And it has to be emptied into boxes,
And I have,
and we have to
Banker
keep the
boxes.
boxes till after the election.
I think I.
Last time I think they shredded them the day before the election. But however that works.
So the requirement is to only hold ballots from the previous year until the AGM. Is that
Well,
what I mean?
one-
There's a new
year.
law that says they have to be kept for a year, till the next year. And so I don't know the exact parameter of it's like 366th day they can be destroyed or the 364th day. I don't know. But at any rate, we do have, and we've done it that way every year.
Okay.
So, but yeah, we'll have to get the gun cases emptied out and stored somewhere till after the election to get them shredded so that we have them empty to be able to put in ballots as they come in.
So it seems like a good idea to load them in bankers boxes,
I
as
don't
you
know if
suggested,
Michael had alerted me to that, so
Yeah.
I've got more.
and then they can be
Friday.
locked away. Okay.
Good.
Hey, do I get an expense account here? Zero. Never mind. Never mind. The banker boxes are really inexpensive.
They're,
Never mind.
no, I know. No, I'm going to say in that gun case, there are some sensitive documents in there that should not be seen. Wherever we store these, they need to be stored safe because
They would be stored for a long.
there's there's some information in there that probably shouldn't be seen by anybody well, there's a list of all the ballots that were cast by homeowner, the ones that didn't get counted last year. And so that should be protected information.
I understand and
So
agree.
Are you saying that N&E people shouldn't see it, or are you saying,
I haven't,
are you saying
I
only
didn't even
admin
look
should
at,
see
to
it?
be really honest, I didn't even look at them.
So that's something
They're
that
all,
Joanne should.
they're all in there. I did not look at them. I know the total number and I just stuck them in there. I didn't want to know who didn't.
No, I know, but my understanding was that there were no budget only ballots passed last year.
No, these were all of them that showed up after the fact.
Oh, those, okay, those after ballots, okay.
There's about 70
The
of
late
them.
ones, yeah, there are about 77.
So I just wanted to caution wherever you put them, make sure they're secured because that information probably shouldn't.
Be made
Yeah.
available.
Had a-
Yeah. Well, I think that if we simply store the bankers boxes in either of the locked N&E closets, no one else accesses those, so they'll be perfectly safe there.
Sounds good.
Alrighty. And then sometime after the AGM, we'll set a date to do the shredding. How, you do the shredding, Joanne, or any observes the shredding? How does this part work?
Well, in the administrative offices, we have a locked bin
Mhm.
into which we place all materials that need to be shredded.
Is that the Iron Mountain thing?
Yeah, and then occasionally or at need, if the box gets too full, we call and they come and they shred it immediately into their truck.
Yeah.
So it's
So the gun
destroyed.
cases will be done the same day as the ballot boxes then? Or the ballot boxes put out?
That seems logical.
Okay. I'm just taking notes for,
He's our secretary.
I'm a secretary, so.
He's also our
Right.
crab provider sometimes. Okay, okay, I think this is good. I happen to be available Friday, which is great for me. I'm here anyway. And Joanne, just because you and Michael have done it before, about how much time should I be prepared to spend? Like a couple of hours? Does that seem about right?
No, I don't think it'll take
Less than
an hour at most, and that'll be some waiting around.
Real
Yeah.
fast.
Well, that's just helpful to me. Alrighty.
And Joanne, this may be out of from the agenda, but what do you think about sending an e-blast out or something about letting our our neighbors know that the ballot box is in place for them? Is that something to be done?
Every Friday we send an e-blast. So on this Friday, we can certainly mention and we can put a picture in.
Great, thank you very much.
Okay, well, I'm going to jump ahead of myself then on this e-blast. One thing that the work group would like to get is questions from the community. And my request in September kind of got buried under the marina discussion and the ice barn. And so people probably don't even understand that it's there.
We're getting way ahead of here.
Well, that's okay. If we're talking about an e-blast, I thought I would just add
Okay.
that request.
As I said, we prepare and send out the e-blast every Friday. So if you send on Thursday night by, before Friday morning, if you guys send an announcement or a request, we can definitely incorporate it. Additionally, I think it would be a good idea to pick a date that we feel is the last generally viable date to mail and send a special e-blast the day before that day to say, hey, everybody, remember, if you haven't yet, mail your ballot. And if you don't get to it, you can still vote, but here are the ways. So we can definitely, the election is so important and we want everyone to participate. So to use that channel makes a lot of sense to me.
Agreed, that's good.
Okay. All righty. And yeah, and in the same, I have the next item here on this list, it's the volunteers. I've had 1, 2, 3, 4 people suggest that they would be willing to be volunteers. It seems to me when I go over the AGM, it's a really big and important meeting. We need 3 observers. We usually have 2 people, because I know I volunteered the year before last to open the ballots with Unilect. So we need at least 2 people, and I think when I did it, we actually had 3.
We got two opening and 2 to 3 to watch. I mean,
Well,
we only had 2 last year.
observers.
Yeah.
I just want to do a count of what we need. Then we need 2 people to person the sign-in table for the AGM. And actually, for our forums, I think it could be good to have a sign-in table as well. Just so I'm coming up with so far somewhere between 6 and 9 we could use volunteers.
Well, the purpose of the sign-in table for the AGM is that we have to demonstrate a quorum.
Mm-hmm.
But to require a sign-in for the forums might tend to discourage people, since we're not keeping a record for the candidate forums of who's come or who hasn't come to one of those. So I'm not sure that a sign-in would be necessary for that, but having people to help at the candidate forums would be great because especially if questions are going to be taken from the audience, you probably want them to be written down and vetted before they're given to candidates or pulled out of a hat, or however we're going to manage the randomization of those questions. And so to have people who can hand those forms out and have pencils and help collect them from the audience might be helpful. But a sign in for the AGM, the reason we do it, it's the only meeting we ever take that attendance. It's so we can demonstrate a quorum.
Yeah, like you and I talked about, I agree with Joanne. I don't think we need a sign-in at forums. We would have one person stand there just handing out 3x5 cards like we talked about, or have standing there with some pencils and 3x5 cards saying, if you'd like to write down a question, do it on this and put it in this basket before.
So that they get some instruction as they're coming in.
Yeah.
That's the process.
And that could be done
That's
by
good.
somebody from N&E.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Nonetheless, I think that we could, so I have got 4 people, one of whom was sort of volunteered by that person's 8th grade child. So that person may be unaware she's been volunteered. I'm just making a note to myself for these e-blasts. I think that we could use another 4 or 5, steady
Sure.
people.
So we do have a practice of checking volunteers to be sure that they're members in good standing.
Sure.
And also we ask that volunteers sign a short waiver We just require that for all volunteers, so I can make those materials available. And if you send the names and property addresses of the volunteers that you have, Gail, I'm happy to let you know
Okay, I
they're
did hear from
eligible.
One person, they tried to use that volunteer opportunity link, and for some reason it did not seem to work. And I know I did not get any volunteers through the link.
Yeah, so that's a continuing saga of
Crazy.
failing technology.
Mhm.
But if anyone simply sends an email to office@suddenvalley.com, that's that email is monitored by 3 separate people. So emails don't fall through the cracks there, and we keep a record of them.
Well, Joanne, what do you think if you sent us I think I recall the form that we all sign as volunteers. If you sent that to the committee, if we're out talking with our neighbors and whatnot and they're interested, that we could send their name and scan maybe the signed form to you. Is that what you're thinking? Or what would be a good process, do you think?
Well, I can certainly send you the form. It's not secret in any way.
Okay.
But it might be a little cart before horse.
Okay.
We should probably check eligibility and then provide a form.
Yeah, that's probably good.
Yeah, and if you send me the names and property addresses and emails, then I can send them the form and they can just send it back to me right away. And you can be copied on all of those communications, Gail or Rob or anyone.
Because Gail, I was thinking there's a couple of neighbors that have said that they'd kind of like to,
Good.
they're interested in the AGM and what's happening just because they know I'm on the committee. So
Mhm.
I can send if they're like, yeah, I'd like to come to the AGM or excuse me, the candidate forums and help. I
Yeah,
certainly make sure you and the committee and Joanne knows who they are.
and we
Addresses.
do have our first forum is coming up October 5th, so we could, keep that moving, I'd say fairly promptly.
Right. I think if we nail down exactly how many volunteers we need, because I'd hate to have,
Right.
say, a dozen and we only need 6 and people are kind of like, what do they say, well, I'm willing to help, but then they're kind of
Well, we need volunteers for the AGM,
You need 5
and then
5 altogether.
for the
Besides the
AGM?
committee.
for the AGM. Is all you need is 5.
So 5 plus the 3 of us.
Yeah.
So you need 8 altogether.
Well, there'll be the 5 and the 3 of us.
Gotcha.
It did help to have 2 people manning the sign-in table last year because there was a scramble for figuring out when we had a quorum.
Yeah.
And the same people have volunteered again this year. They don't use email. It's only telephone contact.
Okay, well, at this point, either they could drop by the Welcome Center for those forms, or if it's George and Iris, I have their forms. Yeah, I have their forms on file from the regatta, so it shouldn't be a problem.
Oh, so you can use them again? Sure. Perfect. All righty.
I'm more than
How
willing.
many-
I'm more than willing to be. Well, I'm sorry, Gail.
Well, I was gonna say, how many volunteers would be appropriate for the candidate forums? I mean, I think a table with the 3x5 cards and someone standing there saying, hey, if you want to submit a question, this is the time to do it.
I would think we as the NNE committee could handle that. One person from the committee could be there.
Well, we're down. We only had 5 and now we're down 1. We're down to
Well,
4.
there's 4. Yeah,
Do you think you could handle that, Michael?
on the one thing that I'll be at, yeah.
You're only at 1. Rob, do you feel comfortable handling that?
I'm not shy. So yeah, I could do that.
I was thinking with Rob being in a wheelchair, if you had one other, like he could sit up here at the door and have 3x5 cards and pins for the forum and say, if you want to, if you have a question that you'd like to ask the candidate, put it on this card and get it back in this basket. That's real simple. And for the AGM, we do need 2 people at the table there. And if Rob wanted to man the table on the AGM and one other person, I think there's this one guy that comes every year.
Well, this could be George and Iris. I can't think of their last name right
Yeah,
now.
okay, that'd be fine.
That'd be great. Yeah.
Because when we get toward the end of everything on the AGM, 2 people have to be in the counting room with Unilec to go over
Totals?
the questionable ballots. What was this like if they're not marked right? What's this, we all agree what this states. And so they're both, in the past, we've had 2 people from N&E in the room with Unilec, and the 4 of us decide on, you know.
But I believe this year it's going to be the chair of NNE and it's going to be the GM plus Unilec to look at the questionable ballot.
That's fine, but there's got to be 4 people. Yeah.
Right. And then we also need to have observers and envelope openers, right?
Yeah, there'll be 2 observers.
and
at
2
least
of
2
each.
observers and 2 openers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think what we've come down to is like a 6 minimum. And
I think it'd be okay to
yeah.
have a couple of extra people because,
yeah,
life happens, right? Things, you can't make it. So I know George and Iris are interested and, we've, been trading phone calls a bit. And I have one other, the woman who probably has to, her daughter volunteered or so that's kind of scary. And then we could use probably a couple more. Yeah, I wouldn't want to put out a call for volunteers and then discover everybody says, hey, I'd like to do it. And then we have to write, oh, well, sorry, premature.
Yeah.
We don't need a cast of thousands. for
No.
this. So maybe we won't put out the call for volunteers. What are your thoughts, Joanne?
I would put it out and ask if people want to volunteer. We need 2 observers at least, but we could put 4 people down there watching too. I mean, it's not unlimited because our space
No.
is constrained, but there are always things to do and extra hands are helpful.
Yeah, if we had too many, I mean, maybe if we reach 10, if we could say, hey, it looks like we're good. Put out another e-blast thing, something along those lines. All right, well, we are jumping around a little bit, but that's okay because these things are intertwined. The report from the work group. So there are questions here that I wanted all of us to look at, and I wanted Joanne's input too. So, one,
And we're not going to read these questions out loud, right?
I didn't even send you the question.
Oh.
We're going to hold off on the question. I'm not even sure about the questions yet. And the idea is we're still deciding, will the questions be shared in advance with the candidates or will they not? And until that decision is made, probably best to make sure that everyone has equal opportunity to wait until that decision has come about. So, okay. I think we've talked about, and people can follow along. Joanna gave you a copy of that. Whether it's maybe it won't be a sign-in table near the entrance, but just a table near the entrance, so that they have a firm surface to write on. If they want to write it.
So last year, and when I say last year, I was only here last year. I don't know what was done in previous years.
Right.
So take that with a grain of salt. But last year, a table was provided for candidates to put materials on it so that people who came could pick up a piece of paper or a flyer or a half sheet with the vote, vote for Joanne on it, which that might be a nice thing to have out here.
Absolutely.
And then it doesn't need to be manned, people can just put it there. But yeah, I think having a welcome table with cards and pens, pencils, and a basket is a good way to generate questions. Now, last year, even in the online forums where we did have plenty of folks attending, there weren't a lot of questions, and some of the questions that were submitted weren't really appropriate. There were clearly leading questions meant for one person or another, and some of the questions were screeds, sort of cleverly concealed as a question. Right. So there is a fair bit of work in reading and screening those questions. So that's a place I think where NNE, we really have to focus.
My view would be though, it could be good to have someone with their NNE or someone else, a person at this table or at the, maybe there are two tables, one for the literature and one just to, people have questions. When is it starting? Where should I do this? Where's the bathroom? On and on and on.
Mhm.
You know, just so they feel greeted, you know, a greeter perhaps.
A volunteer could do that. That would be good.
Mhm. Okay.
And I will have staff supporting me this year at the candidate forums. So that's helpful. We'll have someone who's in charge of running the machinery,
Mhm.
making sure we're recorded, etc. We'll have someone else who is timing candidates.
You mean the timekeeper?
Yeah, so I mean, that person can be timing, but we've purchased a new time clock last year. The time clock that had been used by the association wasn't working. So this new one, you set it and it's, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 11 minutes, doesn't matter. You set it and then it goes green, orange, gold, and then red. So it warns people. They can look at it as it's counting down and they'll know when they have time left.
You know, the forums I've participated in, of which there have been many in Seattle for sure. Usually there's a timekeeper. Now maybe the timekeeper would be using this new
Device.
time
Yeah.
because you have a card and the card's on one side it will say something like 1 minute left, and then you flip it and it says 30 seconds in really big letters. And the candidate can see that. If they have to look for a flashing light and they're getting, wrapped up in their speech, they might miss it. And one thing I think that's really important is to keep the candidates to the time. I mean, I'll be suggesting that they all practice with a kitchen timer or whatever to learn how to get their points across in 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah. The device can be used by the timekeeper,
Right.
but I don't think you're wrong. I think holding up a sign or waving your hand, or last year, Sandy Mitchell brought along a little bell.
Yes,
actually
that
very
was good too, something audible. And so good, we've got that. Now,
Yeah, so setting up on stage makes sense to me. That's certainly possible with the sound equipment that we have. And last year we only had 2 working mics, but this year we have 13 working mics. So we can give every candidate their own microphone.
very nice.
That's much nicer. And it'll save time. I think if you're requiring people to walk to a podium,
You can lose 30 seconds and it's cumulative.
right? So I would suggest that. And then if with 5 candidates, they'll be quite comfortable seated at 2 tables, and we'll go ahead and use these, these green tablecloths so people don't have to feel like, there's a little bit of a screen.
Mhm.
They're more comfortable.
I would like them to stand for sure when they're speaking though. It's easier, their voice will project further than if they sit. That's just.
But also it'll be,
Yeah.
but are they going to be, is it going to be streamed or recorded?
It will be recorded.
So they have to be able to speak into a microphone so it can, if they're standing.
Standing will be complicated unless you require a podium.
Or if they have to stand and hold it's kind of,
No, we'll have to have them just.
they'll have to sit, yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
They
Well,
can't have, they each can't have their own mic and then get up and walk to the podium.
Yeah, it doesn't work. Yeah.
Well, I know that time is lost in walking to a podium.
Yeah,
It's
so-
very nice that, it allows you
Yeah.
to focus on.
Yeah, then we can't have both, so we gotta. I think just having them set, as long as they don't talk over one another, on a topic,
But I think they also need some coaching about these microphones, because one of the things I've noticed and what I recall when I was helping with sound at the meetings was these are very, very directional microphones. If you talk over like this, people online cannot hear.
Yep.
You
Yeah.
really got to speak direct. And some people aren't comfortable with microphones. I don't want to get too close, but these microphones, it's better. I'm not saying they're bad. They're just, you got to get into them a little bit. Like I noticed, Joanne, you're like, right, you practice.
I have learned. Yeah. So you're
Yes.
exactly right, Rob. The gain on the mics is very low, even though we've turned it all the way up on the board. So unless you're absolutely right there,
Would it make any sense to have a brief rehearsal for the candidates, just independent of the forums, where they practice the question? I'm just,
yeah, I don't really have the staff to support that. Every time we set up and break down, it's an hour. So
Well, what you
it's
could do,
challenging.
what you could do is just ask the candidates to come a little bit early. I mean, they don't have to be here an hour, but
Yeah.
I'm just suggesting that we spend a little time with them to understand the use of microphones, because not everybody really understands. They got to get right into that.
Yeah, that's certainly possible, Rob.
Yeah, that would only take a couple minutes before you get started. Just,
Yeah.
like
you know,
more than a couple of minutes for the people who are still trying to figure it out. But yeah, I would say maybe 15 minutes. Of course, if the candidates are practicing and people are showing up, it's going to also be confusing. So we might want them to come 30 minutes early, and then they would practice for 10, 15 minutes, and then there'd be a break where they could mingle if they wanted or do whatever they wanted.
We can support that. Whatever you think is best. We can be here half an hour early, all set up and ready to go.
Yeah. All righty. Okay, refreshments. Will
Yes,
we have
please.
water, coffee, hot water, instant coffee or tea bags?
We can definitely bring up water from the cafe and make coffee and bring hot water.
Mhm.
I can tell you that when we were doing that earlier in the year, it wasn't really, it's kind of a waste. We threw out a lot of
No one
coffee,
cared about it.
really,
Yeah.
but
But what occasion were you providing it for?
the town hall last year and the AGM last year. And then
Mhm.
in the beginning of the year, we did have attendance at the board meetings when we first
Mhm.
started
Mhm.
in December and January. And so we had refreshments, but they were never made use of,
Mhm.
really.
Well, then perhaps just having water, bottled water, whatever. I don't want to waste.
For the town hall,
Mhm.
we proposed to have cake in between during that half hour as a happy anniversary celebration. So that'll be nice. We'll have cake and hopefully people will stay for that.
Cake, but no coffee.
Oh yeah, well, all the accoutrements
All righty.
and full-size forks.
All righty. Okay, so we've discussed the 3x5 cards and the questions in advance and the e-blasts and
And yeah, if there are any supplies, admin can order those. So we have banker's boxes always.
you have bankers boxes.
So I can bring those on Friday and I'll go ahead and get more of the stick pens that we normally bring
Mhm.
and 3x5 cards as well.
Mhm.
So if you think of other supplies that you would like us to have, let me
Yeah,
know.
I think those would be the main things. Okay, here's a question for N&E really. Thinking about it, I know, Rob, you've told me you don't particularly want to be participating in a forum. And since you're the sole candidate for N&E, I think it can be nice to introduce the candidates so that the membership, the people who show up, know who is going to be working on their behalf in the coming year, but perhaps not as part of the actual question and answer forum.
that's what you mean here by participants. Okay, because I was going to ask.
Yes, I mean, forum participants
Right.
are here.
Yeah, and I think what my comment was, since I was the sole person, I'd rather have more time given for the board members so that the community members have a chance to listen to the answers to their questions. If I vote for myself, I'm in, so.
You're in.
That may be good or bad.
It might be a good idea if they were all the candidates were here and that you could at least say, yeah, I'm Rob and I'm
Yeah, I think that's wonderful.
Joe Jean and the other guy, I can't remember his name now.
Yeah, it's Zwolinsky.
Yep.
Patrick Zwolinsky. So your thought is that they would just be here in the, in this part of the room, or they would be up on the stage? It might be difficult for Rob.
They
just
would,
here up
you
on
could
the
just
stage.
be in
So raise your hand,
in
either
the
together.
room, raise your hand, or they could be up by the stage at the start and
Yeah,
they
that
could
would be good.
introduced and then,
And then they could,
Yeah.
Well,
disappear
and,
into the crowd.
and the other thing you could do too is you could say, hey, or like in my case or ACC, Rob's here. If you have any feedback or any questions you'd like to ask them,
yeah,
he's open to, I mean, I'm totally open to talking with
Yeah.
people. I don't mean to sound flip when I say I vote.
or if people had
So-
questions for,
Yeah.
why are you running, what are your
But the
experience for
thing is,
ACC?
what would be the structure in which those questions would be
Well,
posed?
it would
and
be
we get
more
the answer?
informal. I'm thinking, Gail, just be informal that if during at some point after the meeting or, I don't know, I'm just offering up that
Or somebody might put one on a 3x5 card.
I mean, I'm just offering up that I'm willing to, for it to be approached. It's just, I wanted to ensure that there was as much time as possible for people to have a chance to hear the potential board members
Mhm.
share their ideas.
Yeah. And I think that's where most everything's going to be focused anyway.
Yes.
Perhaps it could be like this, the three, two ACC and one NNE candidates would be at the foot of the stage here, available. And then we could say, if you have questions for them, because we're really on a tight timeline, getting this whole thing
Mhm.
in and out. And say, if you have questions for them, write them on a card, and during that part of our structure of our forum, and maybe mark it so that we can catch them right away. We'll read them and then we'll ask these individuals to respond.
So last year we allowed candidates to introduce themselves. They were given a set time. I don't remember if it was 3 minutes for an introduction or 5 minutes or something like that. But Gail, I remember you weren't on
Okay.
stage, but you were in the audience, and we asked
I
you to
was on a
introduce
roll,
yourself.
Joanne, and at the height of my eloquence,
Oratory.
Gail, your time is up. That's okay.
Yeah. That similar process would be fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That sounds good. Yeah, and on page 2, we have more of a detailed timeline. So let's see if we've covered some of the really logistical things.
So I just wanted to ask a question, Gail.
Yeah,
Are you, at the top of the form, it says Gail, Karen, and Michael. Were you the work group?
we are the work group, but we've not met together to avoid this quorum issue. So Karen and I talked yesterday on the phone, and then Michael and I talked this afternoon earlier on the phone. And that is a problem because we don't want to form a quorum and have to go through all of that, but we do need to hear what one another thinks. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, initially we became the work group because we had the other 2 members were candidates. Okay. Okay, just a general format question. How would we order the candidates on the stage? Alpha, by ballot placement, have them draw numbers from a hat, so that'd be just de novo. Anyone care to weigh in on that?
I think we should stick with by the way that they are on the ballot.
I agree.
Replacement on the chairs.
Yes.
Okay, well. If we do alpha, Mary Stidham still ends up at the end, so that doesn't improve her situation. The others are not too much better. Any comments you want to make, Joanne?
Last year we used the ballot order.
Mhm.
I agree with Michael that kind of cements in everyone's head
Mhm.
how to find someone and who they are. They can keep looking at their list.
Okay. All righty. Yeah, Rob, I was thinking maybe you could be the timekeeper, but maybe I should find someone else, because if we introduce you as the sole candidate for NNE, people may wish to buttonhole you, and
Sure. That,
yeah.
whatever works.
that's a timekeeper.
Well, just remember, I'll have staff as well.
Yeah.
You can assign one of them.
Okay. And then, I mean, this is very loosely put, crowd control and sergeant in arms. I thought Michael could play that role and collect the cards. Just meaning whatever questions people have as, the attendees. So they need to be able to turn to someone for an answer.
So whenever an event is held at Sudden Valley, we do have security
Mhm.
patrolling the area. I
Mhm.
don't think that we're going to expect hundreds of participants
all.
like we did for the event, but we will keep an eye on parking.
Mhm.
People can be assured that there's someone who can direct them.
I did look at some of the past forums, 'cause I, had records from when I was on the board in the Middle Ages and more recently, and it looks like for the forums, when we had them in person, we'll have about 25 to 30 people show up. Now, maybe that wasn't true last year, but I do remember last year feeling that the in-person forum was more informative than the remote one. Just a thought. So hopefully we will have maybe 25 to 30 members showing up. So page 2 is simply that I went over the timeline because I know from doing these things, the candidates want more than 2 minutes to speak, but the time can go very quickly. So I thought introductory statements, maybe 2 minutes each. Questions from the moderator, 3 minutes each. And maybe only 3 questions because that takes us to, for the first forum, it would take us to 8 o'clock. And then maybe a little break and then we have some options here. We could have 2 more questions. We could have questions from the membership. We could have closing statements and, and we could have speed dating. But maybe we won't have time for speed dating. Speed dating is something that when I was researching political forums and candidate forums, it sounded great because people like interacting and moving around and having things change, but it might become a little unwieldy, and trying to end it might be a little unwieldy.
I would vote no on that. Logistically speaking, I don't think it would be
It'd be
easily
hard to
managed.
conclude it.
Yeah, I don't support that.
What was that? The speed dating?
Yes.
Yeah, it's chaos. I kind of like the format here myself of, you got 5 people and if they're each sticks to 3 minutes, that's 15 minutes each question.
Hmm.
And so
That's 45 minutes.
that's 45 minutes for 3 questions and a 4-minute break.
Hmm.
And depending on whether we get questions from homeowners,
Hmm.
we could have 2 other backup questions ready.
Hmm.
If we don't get questions from homeowners, we'll just have a slight break and then do question 4 and 5.
How about closing statements? Maybe 1
That's
minute.
fine too. I mean, as long as if we can stick to the.
Well, we have a discrepancy here. Our first forum is 7 to 9, and our second forum is 4 to 5:30. Do we want to make both forums a 90-minute forum?
I think they should both be 2-hour forums.
Oh, we haven't got to that yet.
Okay, well then let me back up. So one of the concerns I have is that if we're asking for questions ahead of the forum and then we hand out cards as people are coming in. So for example, what if we end up with 20 questions and we're only going to have 5 of them?
Well, let me
just finish. Well, then how do we choose? How are we going to choose these questions? I think we're going to end up with more than 5 questions.
Rob, this is my thought. In asking for questions in advance, we start to get a sense of what is the community, what are the members wanting to hear? We're not going to use all the questions they send in. Possibly we wouldn't use any of the questions in the exact format that we receive them, but it will give us a sense of what people are wanting to hear about. And there are a lot of things going on in the Valley,
Sure. So what are the top 5 questions?
Yeah, sort of like what are the
Gotcha.
top 5 topics?
Gotcha.
What do most people want to hear about? And then those questions will be incorporated into questions 1 through 5.
Okay.
if people wish to hand in questions, see, this is a question for us. If the audience hands in questions, and that can make it more alive, they've gone to the trouble of coming. And so to have their question asked energizes, it kind of adrenalizes people when they speak up
Right.
or hear their words being used. It might depend on the questions we get, Are you concerned about time, Joanne?
No, I think that there was a dearth of questions last year and candidates didn't take their full time
Uh-huh.
answering the questions.
All right.
3 minutes is actually quite a long time.
I thought so, and someone had suggested 2 minutes to kind of keep it down.
What do you
I'm
think?
happy to do that.
I think whoever is moderating has to be able to think on their feet and have questions ready to go that are fair questions.
I think what I meant was, do you think it should be, the timekeeper should keep it to 2 minutes or 3?
I really think it depends on the question and whether you're giving them out in advance, or whether you're popping them on people at the last moment. And there are schools of thought, right? And probably a mix of the two is a good idea. For example, everyone's had the opportunity to write a bio and write a vision statement, and those are being prepared and being broadly made available, right? So to stand up and simply repeat, I moved here and, my 3 children and I love Sudden Valley and blah, 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 like, okay, right? So, and that's all valid and all good. And people have already communicated that. So now in the forum, it's kind of a shift. Well, what motivated you to run? What kind of offices have you held before? What qualities do you bring to this that you think sets you apart? Why do you think you would be a good director? Why do you think, people should vote for
There
you?
should be more direct questions rather than general, who are you? They all should have put that in the bio.
Right. And
Do you
so,
think
yeah,
the introductory statement could be briefer?
I think if you give people, some questions to prepare in advance, like we were just discussing, very direct questions, then they all start with an equal footing and they can, in their 3 minutes, answer those important things and then be ready to receive questions, from the
That's good.
membership or think on their feet.
And I don't know why, Joanne, I feel as if I didn't quite grasp what you are recommending or what is your thought. The introductory statements, should, in your view, are they helpful or are they not needed?
I think introductory statements are needed,
Mhm.
but I think that that candidates should get some direction to make them meaningful.
I see. Okay, the thing, yeah,
Right.
we have some of those other questions, that type of question, like, what is motivating you to run? What would be your unique contribution, or maybe not unique, but what would be your strong contribution? So you're thinking the introductory statements could be built around that type
Yes.
of question. So they don't, yeah, as you say, my children and whatever.
That's what I was just I agree with what Joanne was saying, like their opening statement. I know what questions are on the things that you and I talked about, that you and Karen talked about. And if we took those first 3 kind of ideas there, and they're basically, what made you run for the board? What qualities do you have? And what interests, what are your key interests, like on marina or trails or whatever? And they introduce themselves that way, that would get rid of those first 3 questions, and then we could move into some other questions and homeowner comment cards.
Yeah, that sounds good.
See, then
Like that.
you've shaped their opening statement. They all know what their opening statement should cover,
Mhm.
those general topics, and then get into more specific questions. And some homeowners might ask just direct questions of one person, like, they want to know about that one person, maybe not the whole group. I don't know.
No, I see where this idea, and I think that that's good, because you're right. To some extent, we want to avoid non-informative repetition.
Yeah.
We want to try and get more to the meat of the matter, such as it is. Okay, well, we've had, something else. I'm willing to leave this forum discussion alone because I'm thinking we possibly should have another NNE meeting before the end of the month, when we can then we need to make a decision, and I think the study group basically needs to make that decision about, are we going to share the questions with the candidates? Are we going to share some but not all? Or are we going to not share any? And once we do that, then we can, fine tune these questions and possibly bring them to a meeting. And then possibly
Yeah.
have some questions that,
My feedback to the group would be, share some and then let some be, coming from the floor. Yeah.
Yeah. We need to hit this date, the dates.
The dates.
that's true. We have
And
a date on
format.
October 5th. Yeah, so we don't have forever to work on this thing. And today's the 25th. If the forum work group has a meeting of the minds, and it's going to be in the format of some questions will be shared and others will be surprise questions, we could share the shared questions with the candidates and with the community.
Yeah.
The surprises are going to be a surprise. We would have to work it out amongst ourselves. And also, and again, Joanne, since Friday is the e-blast, I am anxious to hear from the community about the topics they want to hear the candidates speak to. Now, I don't know that people are going to be writing in. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But it would be great to have a sense of what concerns them. Now, another somewhat related question. I know that there's a lot of
So I would suggest that you get input from your committee, Gail, and come to the meeting on Thursday, the board meeting on Thursday, with a solid proposal for how the forums are to be handled in terms of the questions and who's asking the questions and how they'll be asked and all of that, because it was a topic of conversation among the board earlier in the year when the communications committee was being discussed. And in previous years, the communications committee did a lot of work around the candidate forums, and they managed those forums. And so this year, when the communications committee was being discussed by the board, it was brought up that that was an important job that that committee did, and who would handle it in the absence of that committee. And there was conversation and consensus reached by the board that the N&E committee would handle it as has been done in previous years. So the board has a sense for what they expect to see. And as this is a relatively new role for the N&E committee, I think that you should present it to the board and achieve consensus regarding the specific details of the format to be used in governing those forums.
so this is an agenda item for Thursday.
I think that is a good use of time, and I will suggest that to the president, who pretty much does the agenda.
Good.
Does that make sense,
Yeah.
Michael? Because you were there at that
Yeah.
discussion.
AJ said that, in lieu of not having the communication committee, that he felt N&E should take over the role. And so we should have our role at least presented. This is how we see it. And it's real simple. I mean, I think you're getting way too deep, Gail, in all the timelines and the questions and all. I mean, we could direct real simply that we would like to have the forums on this day and this day, they be this length of time and this length of time. We give 3 topics, which they really don't have to be questions, but they would be question topics like what is your benefit for being on the board? What are your skills and attributes? Why did you choose? What are your thoughts, or, we could come up with that real simply, just 3 topics. And then when they open their opening statement, they cover those 3 things. And then we move on into the surprise questions, the ones that haven't been rehearsed, or we have the cards from the people that have sent in questions or that are there present in the room, and it goes pretty smoothly. But that's why I was saying we need to kind of make sure we have the date and the format that we want, that we're going to present, because we have the timeline laid out. We can figure out our questions really quickly. I mean, you got half of it or 3/4 of it already done.
That's true.
Okay, but bear in mind that this was done yesterday.
I know,
And that one member of our group is ill
I know.
and the board meets on Thursday. Now, I will do what I can, but I just want to be sure that I understand. I thought perhaps Joanne was suggesting a more granular approach, as they call it. Maybe she wasn't. I mean, not just a broad brush, hey, this is the general outline, but more detail. So you can tell me, Joanne, help me understand what you think would be helpful.
I think the specifics are pretty straightforward. How are the questions being collected? Who is vetting the questions? Are all candidates receiving all questions, or will some candidates receive questions special for them? Who is moderating? Who is timekeeping? How can we be assured in all of these things that fairness is being, made a priority, and that those are the questions that I've had, and those were the
Yeah.
concerns that were voiced to me last year.
And she has all that. I mean, she has all that in this front page of the roles, the questions, the participants, and that.
Just
Basically, we need to decide what we're going to give out. And we don't know what we're not going to have because we haven't got them yet.
Right.
And so, but
I'm sorry, that sentence leaves me kind of, say that one more time. We don't know what we don't have?
well, we don't know if there's any questions that are coming in, we don't know what they are because they haven't come in yet. But you do have 3 or 4 really good questions here that you and Karen came up with, and I read them and I agreed. I said, they're great questions.
Okay, well, remember, Michael, we have, try not to be too specific about the question.
Oh, I know. But the ones the topics that you guys talked about, and then you and I talked about, they're great topics, and we give them to all the candidates.
Mhm.
And they're all applicable to all the candidates.
Well, listen, why don't I make this suggestion? I mean, I feel that time is really short. Because when is time not short? Always really short. Why don't I draft up the best I can tomorrow? Let's hope that Karen
Okay.
is capable of interacting. Pass it by you and by Karen. And Joanne, I would even pass it by you, because you could say, hey, Gail, I was expecting a little bit more here, or maybe
Yeah.
you needn't go into so much detail there.
I
Try to make it.
I think, if I could help, I
Yeah.
think, maybe just sort of break it out starting with who, what, when, right? So I won't be the timekeeper. You could change that to a staff person. You're going to moderate. I think what we're going to ask all the candidates and let them know we would like you to hit 3 or 4 bullet points in your opening statement. Those were what motivated you to serve, what skills do you have, those kinds of things. And then you could say, we are going to ask 4 to 5 questions, which will be vetted by X. We don't know yet the answer to that question.
Well, they're going to be, the questions will be vetted by Gail, me, and Karen.
And that's perfect, because that's the N&E committee, is a cross-section of people, ensuring that I really like what this statement we've been saying tonight, ensuring that we have a fair and professional election. We want to make sure there's fairness and that it's above board. Right? I mean, I think that's
And you
what
know
I've been
what,
hearing.
Rob, I would be comfortable unless someone wants to speak to it. Yes, you're a candidate, but you're a candidate, as I was last year, for a job that nobody wants, you might say. I shouldn't say that perhaps, but I would be comfortable, having you take a look at the proposal that I bring to the board.
Yeah.
'Cause it will be a public proposal.
I would be happy to.
Yeah.
I'd be happy to. Member of
And,
the,
you have a
member of the committee. Yeah.
as a member of the committee, and we're down a member of having different voices and different perspectives is helpful.
And
I'm
so
probably not speaking into this mic at all.
the last thing we haven't on our little checkoff sheet here, we have the questions, roles, order on stage, who's vetting the questions. We need the format.
But this is the format.
I mean, the format, are you going to present what format you would like to have the meetings in, live or,
They're both suggestions are for in-person meetings.
okay,
But we will record them and make them available so that people who can't
yeah,
attend can
Absolutely.
view.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And but did I understand you? And they won't be live recorded. Is that right? There'll be people can view them.
It won't be live streamed, no.
Yeah.
Or
They won't,
if we do, we could, but what we are not going to do is have an enormous webinar where people can ask questions like
Right.
we used to do.
yes,
We're not going to do that. But if you want to ask a question, you have to come.
Right.
But if you want to just watch, you can see it on YouTube.
yes.
that's a good way to put it.
And if you want to ask a question, you can send your send your questions
Fire.
ASAP.
Yeah, in
You
advance.
know, there's other way too, and at least get a sense of the topic.
The reason I'm asking that is it was kind of my understanding that we were going to do one as just a remote meeting and one as an in-person meeting.
I think we need to have two in-persons.
But that was
It's
fine.
just-
It
it's-
seems like
It's
I do too,
it's
but
just
I
more
just,
engaging.
I
It's more engaging.
had understood that there was a
Yeah.
question about one forum being just remote, where it was all recorded.
there are pluses and minuses to both forums.
Okay,
And it seems to me our committee had not just a consensus, we were unanimous in
Yes.
wanting two
Okay.
in-persons.
Yes.
And the reason is that the quality of the participation with the remotes, I think, is degraded. It's not as good and, as an in-person. So to me, there's no question there, but I don't know, Joanne, do you want to speak to that?
I do. I think I know many people who share your view, Gail,
Mhm.
that virtual meetings are not as good
Mhm.
as in-person meetings.
Mhm.
And there are certainly things that you can say that support that
Mhm.
view. I also know that there is a very large group of people who prefer virtual meetings, and our experience here at Sudden Valley, which should be very relevant and considered strongly by people making decisions for Sudden Valley, is that there was more participation in all meetings when they were virtual. There is a large group demographically of people who prefer to participate in things virtually. They simply do. They don't agree that meeting someone in person is better necessarily. The convenience factor is also very important. If you're a family with young children, starting a forum at 7 p.m. and going till 9, well, you've got to hire a babysitter if you're going to come down, or only one partner. If you're in a partnership raising those children, only one partner can attend. So by insisting that the meetings both be the same format, one consequence of that decision is that you are excluding a certain demographic, making it more difficult for them to attend and to participate. So while I understand your view, I also understand that there is a view that disagrees with it. And I'm just trying to present facts. I'm not saying what I prefer. I'm not saying what we should do. I'm just sharing some facts.
And I appreciate that. You're very factual. But the thought in the past, before remote became an option, which it did very much starting 2020 with COVID, was that by having one evening in person, they were always in person in those days, and then one weekend one, it staggered the availability. if it's a question simply, I would like to distinguish between attendance, that is viewership, watching, and participation. Because there might be more people watching if we do a totally remote forum, but they're not necessarily going to participate more unless they call in or whatever we choose for that. And if it's only viewing and we can do live streaming, that would be great. But even so, after the fact, they watch at their convenience. I mean, especially before I've tried to show good attendance since I've been a member of the board, but certainly before then, I've watched a lot of board meetings, but not contemporaneously, so to speak. Those were my thoughts. I thought this was not a further decision to be made.
I was also of that opinion. You have come out early and often saying that you feel that in person and your committee,
Mhm.
presenting your committee, I don't mean you personally, that the choice was to have them in person, and we have made arrangements to support that. But I do feel that it's important to understand that there are conflicting views out there and the reasons behind those views. As you say, people who are not able to be here in person can still view the forums virtually, and that's a good thing. However, there are mechanisms built into our technology that do allow people to submit questions online using the Q&A function that we have in Zoom. And in the past, as everyone here is aware, when we do a purely virtual meeting, we can staff it so that someone can allow individual attendees to ask a question during the homeowner comments section, for example. And, they raise their hands, they go into a queue, they get their 3 minutes, and they are heard and they participate in the meeting in that way. But
So in the one where you're talking about that would be just a remote, people could still attend that one though then, right?
No, there's no in person.
No?
Yeah, because that is called a webinar and it would
Well,
not
no,
be
I
a
don't, I
webinar.
know that. I mean,
Okay.
I know we're not doing a Zoom meeting where people can all come in and sit in it and watch. They're going to watch it later, right? It'd just be recorded and watched later.
Right.
But what we're recording could have live people in the room watching it, right? I mean, if we're going to have it here, correct? Both town halls would be filmed here.
yeah, so
I
So
thought-
what we haven't been able to support is, and Sun Valley has done this in the past. The AGM before I joined the organization, or no, it was the special election right before I joined,
Yeah.
was both in person and people participated virtually. They were allowed to make comments virtually. And so it was what I call a hybrid. You were in person,
Yes.
but you allowed virtual participation.
Yes.
And my experience in trying to do board meetings like that is you need too much staff and you need it just become it's too much.
Correct.
And I have to say that when I looked at the video of that special meeting, it was very awkward, hard to manage. And so the decision has been made that when we have in-person meetings, we are going to record, we are going to simulcast on YouTube, but we're not going to be a hybrid.
Yes.
And that's the choice that has been made.
So that's what I'm trying to, my terminology may not be correct, but that's what I meant. So say we're having the town forum or the town meeting or whatever you want to call it, and it's being recorded to be viewed later
Yeah, live stream.
And live stream, yeah.
and live streamed. There could be people here though that wanted to come and watch it live, but they wouldn't be allowed to ask questions and interact and all that. Is that wrong?
I thought that the intent of having people come was to encourage that participation by submitting questions.
Okay, so then there wouldn't be any attendees at that one of them, it would just all be remote.
No, both of the meetings have been scheduled with the understanding that they would be in person and simulcast and recorded, but not virtually participated in.
Yeah, well, somebody online could virtually participate.
Right. But it is a staffing consideration, right? We have to have a lot more people and a lot more time spent in setting up the meeting when we do it in person. And we are ready to do that for these two events. But when I was asked originally, I suggested let's do one in person and let's do one virtually, because why not? I mean, it
Well, then you
saves
could just
time.
set up chairs
Yeah,
and
exactly.
all that. Okay,
And
Right.
like I said, the practices or our experience of these in-person meetings has been that no one comes.
that's what I'm just trying in my head, understand the terminology. It's all like,
Yeah.
I'm,
Well,
it's,
Michael, you know.
There's a
with
real
this,
vocabulary.
I think that we have gone, I think hopefully you're clear
I am.
on the format.
Yep.
I'm not going to propose any changes. And, I mean, I'm sorry, Joanne, that will cost you more staff time and so forth, but I feel the cause is worth it. And as you know, that's how I feel. So if we have nothing more, you have something more, Michael?
one more thing, I'm trying to get my notes here.
Okay.
So we've agreed that the first meeting is going to be on October 5th. The second forum is on October 14th. And we have one 2 hours long and we have one an hour and a half long.
That's a good point, because Robin suggested both be 2 hours, so perhaps the second one could run over. In other words, it's
So
going to
from
start at
7 to
4.
9 on both of them.
I
No,
think,
no. The second one is an afternoon one. It's going to be 4 to 6.
because I think we need to have the same amount of time. We're gonna do 5 questions. We need the 2
Okay.
hours.
And after hearing Joanne's explanation of this, I would be willing to concede one of the meetings in person to be strictly remote and one of them to be in person live streamed. So I want as many people as possible to be able to see the town meetings and to meet their candidates and form a educated opinion. So
Well, if you want that, Michael, then I suggest you make a motion, because one of the things that is concerning to me is the so-called consensus, where it's not, formulated as a motion. We're not always clear what the consensus consists of. So I would propose that you make a motion, and the committee here, which does consist of a quorum, will vote on it.
okay, well, I would make a motion that one of the meetings is purely hybrid or purely, my terminology
Virtual.
correct,
Purely virtual.
purely virtual, and the other one would be an in-person meeting live streamed. Is that the correct term?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, and do we have a second? I'll second it so that we can have the discussion. And I'd like to point out that we don't have it, as I understand it, the budget town hall will be in person. So that would not be, from my point of view, a good choice, number one, to have the remote, because we're already in person. Why not take advantage of the fact that the dance hall has been set up for it in person? So if this motion were to pass, it would mean that the upcoming motion would, the upcoming candidate forum on October 5th would be remote.
Is the budget done at both candidate forums?
No.
Oh, then,
That's why the dates have been moved around. The budget will only be done on the 14th.
okay. So then the 5th could be purely remote.
Do we have any more discussion?
Virtual.
Yes.
I came with the understanding and the feeling that they should both be in person, live streamed. They should not be able to be hybrid. That is a train wreck waiting to happen. And but I didn't know there were so many people from the consensus of what Joanne brought up, that would rather, and I understand, I've raised kids and it's hard. We had 4 kids, so yeah. I've had my opinion changed.
Do we have any more discussion? Call the question. All in favor of Michael's motion to have one of the candidate forums purely virtual and the other in person? Please vote. And all opposed? So we're on record as a committee as supporting the two in-person forums. But thank you, Michael. I think it's, you know, I'm going forward.
Well, my feelings aren't hurt.
Yeah.
I didn't know that that was a possibility. I didn't really realize how many people really watched, and I'm sure that I'm sure that Sudden Valley has a better idea on what is going on as a whole than I do. So
I think that they will be recorded. People can hear the answers to the questions. They can make their decisions there. I think, unfortunately, I think it's not just Sudden Valley. It's the community, the nation. We are at a point of extreme apathy, and that's sad.
Okay, my dear, no more business. My dear is plural.
Move to adjourn.
this all will be something that is presented, then Gail's gonna present this format to the board, and they're going to yay or nay it or whatever. Okay. Alrighty, why? Make a motion that we go home.
I already did, so you said.
Okay, I'll second it.
So it's 8:08. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
So Joanne, thank you for staying. I know it's late for you. You probably got here at 8:08 a.m.
6:08.
We go live.
Right.
Let's do it. We were moving old parts out. We have to store everything for 9